Friends, family, fellow citizens of Nindie Nation, I come to you bearing gifts of knowledge about games ranging from the bite-sized to the galaxy-spanning. From a single college student sitting in San Francisco to a team of 30 from Timbuktu, from the massively multiplayer to the interactive narrative, these games could make you laugh, they could make you cry, they could make you fall in love or explode in rage, but they all share one thing in common. They're Nindies. Thanks for tuning in to the Nindie Nation podcast, your weekly podcast covering all things independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. I'm Jeff, and today we'll discuss all of the new Nindies releasing on the eShop from September 6th through September 12th. Afterwards, if your Nindie whistle isn't quite wet enough, we'll take a look at the hundreds of games currently discounted on the eShop and pick a few that are worth your precious, precious gaming time. If you'd prefer to see your podcasts, well, you're in luck. Just head on over to Nindie Nation's channel on YouTube. Subscribe and listen to this week's episode, complete with trailers and footage of the games we discussed today, plus all of the past Nindie Nation podcast episodes. If you're looking for a little more with your Nindies while you're on the YouTube channel, be sure to check out our Let's Play Nindies series featuring Skyforce Reloaded, Revenge of the Bird King, and most recently, Rad. And if you just want to profess your love to Nindies, I'm happy to play that game with you. Just find us on Twitter at Nindie Nation, or me specifically at Nindie Jeff. The Nindie Nation podcast is brought to you by the Nintendo Village, a group of content creators who dedicate their digital lives to the 125-year-old playing card company we know as Nintendo. Check out their website at thenintendovillage.com for reviews, discussions, and more podcasts made just for Nintendo nerds like you and me. Well, we had a massive Nintendo Direct this week, which focused on a bunch of AAA titles that'll keep us busy for months to come. But that doesn't mean there's any lack of independently developed games releasing on the little Nintendo hybrid that could. In fact, games release so frequently that a few of them slipped between the couch cushions of the eShop new release list last week. So let's start with what you may have missed since last week's Nindie Nation podcast. Molecats by Vidroid is a cute but challenging indirect control puzzle game, as it were, which basically means you're not controlling the characters, but rather the world around them. I get major Lemmings vibes from it, frankly. You're watching these various mole-cat hybrid creatures burrow their way from one side of the level to another, and your job is to shift tiles and manipulate the environment to ensure they make it to the other side. And I think it looks like a great entry in a very niche genre of games. We don't get too many of these, so it's nice that we had one launch this week for $12.99. Battle Supremacy Ground Assault by Atypical Games is a $20 modern tank game that supports up to 16 players locally and online. I don't know what else to tell you here. You drive tanks and do the kind of things that tanks do, and this title seems to accomplish the goal of letting you tank your way through all of the tank things your heart desires by yourself, or with some friends, or against the world. Online. Also this week, we got a new title from Deluxe Entertainment. A frequent on the Nation of Nindies is a game that's really piqued my interest despite its $30 price tag. The Long Journey Home is a space exploration game where you and your crew are lost among the stars after the first experimental jump drive has failed. You'll explore a, wait for it, procedurally generated universe with roguelike mechanics and, you guessed it, RPG elements. As you try to make your way back home, you get the option to revisit worlds you've conquered or those that have bested you in the past. There's tons of different species, vastly different worlds, and randomized experiences. It seems like the general approach of No Man's Sky, but maybe a bit more simplistic in gameplay. You're mostly staying in the ship and hopping from planet to planet. Doesn't look like you're running around with a little mining beam trying to get ores. Well, maybe, but that's stuff's mostly in the ship. Also, for $1.99 from Rundown Games, we get a title that knows exactly what it is, and that game is called Just Blackjack. Moving on. Also dropping on the eShop this week was Wand Wars, which is a cross between Quidditch and a twin-stick shooter, I think? It's basically a sports game, but you're all mages, and you're shooting magic balls all over the level, and it looks, honestly, like a ton of fun. It features a bunch of different maps and 7 different modes of play that are pretty varied, including local and online multiplayer to keep things interesting. It comes to us from Moonradish for the introductory price of $19.99. And before we move on to new releases, I wanted to take a minute to mention the Impulse game I bought on last week's episode, Finn and the Ancient Mystery. It was $3 last week and it's currently retailing for $4.99. The game is a 2D action adventure that has just about every type of traditional mechanic you'd expect from that genre. So far, I'm about a third of the way through the game and it's really fun. I mean, it's not great, so to speak. There's some wonky physics, some redundant music, and some unintentional comedy with the story and voice acting, but I am having a good enough time to keep playing, and if I can finish up the big video I'm working on for the YouTube channel, I would really like to do a Let's Play Nindies of Finn and the Ancient Mystery as well. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think most 2D action-adventure fans would also enjoy it, as long as you remember it's a $5 game that it looks like it's trying to be much more than it is, and it just falls short in a couple of fairly inconsequential ways. The next time it's $3, it's a very easy recommendation for me. Now, if this podcast were the Christmas Carol, bear with me here, we'd now be past the Ghost of Nindie past and moving on to, I guess, the Ghost of Nindie future, with maybe the sales would be the present. I don't know if that works. But anyways, let's Ebenezer Scrooge our way into what's coming out from September 6th through September 12th. Creature in the Well leads the charge this week and comes to us by Flight School Studio, who has made a couple of indie games in the past, as well as quite a few corporate commercials and games for commercial sake with companies like American Express, GMC, and a video project with Oculus for VR that is called The Evolution of Testicles. I'm not kidding here. So anyways, Creature in the Well is a very future retro-styled hack-and-slash pinball game that I've been excited about for quite some time. If you're familiar with Hyper Light Drifter, the visuals look pretty similar and it's got that top-down mechanic, but otherwise you're dropped into these labyrinth rooms with 8 separate dungeons with a little hub world that connects them, and you have to unlock each next area by basically playing a game of pinball using your sword and other weapons you get to bat these magic balls around the screen. As you open up more areas, you'll see tons of different objectives and like secret rooms to help you grind out more currency, upgrade weapons and equipment, or even find completely new areas that are like really hard challenge rooms. The game launched this week on Xbox Game Pass and as well as on PC and the Xbox One. So that's where I've been playing it, and so far I am really liking it. I think it's $13.49 on the Switch. I don't know if it's quite worth that yet. I need to spend some more time on it, but so far I think it is. If you're watching videos and it looks cool to you, I will say the game feels really good to play. It's very responsive. And so if you see the game and know that, yes, it does well what it sets out to do, then, check it out. It's pretty good. Hinmo is another new game that looks excellent, and I think a lot of people should play this, and I'm very much leaning hard into making this possibly my recommendation for the week. Hinmo comes to us by way of Ratalaika Games, but it's actually developed by a single guy named David Morhelio Sanchez and launches on September 6th for $4.99. It's a 2D action platformer like Celeste or Ratalaika's own Daggerhood, except there's no dying and there's no violence. It's just you starting at the bottom of a very dark, chasm or something. And as you work your way up this completely randomly generated labyrinth, you collect little wisps that start to light the way. And while you do that, the soundtrack also builds around you and kind of molds the soundscape based on how much light you have and how dangerous the area looks. And it comes together to create a really enjoyable experience that is challenging without being frustrating and relaxing while also managing to keep your attention. The game itself, from a core gameplay perspective, isn't too unique, but I like their little spin on it with progression and lack of penalties. And it's really a good approach because it's appropriate for all ages. And as a dad, I really like to see things like that. I think Hinmo is well worth the $4.99 asking price, and it has definitely already worked itself into my top 5 Ratalaika published games. Remothered Tormented Father by Daryl Arts and published by Stormmind Games is one creepy game, dude. It's got freaky little children, women in those early 19th century dresses with like the frilly umbrellas, but they're all dead and gross looking. It's gross. It's spooky. The story is all about missing children and a haunted house of torture at the hands of these crazy nurses. And I looked at a couple of screenshots and about 5 seconds of the trailer, and I just noped my way right out of that one, guys. I'm not gonna lie. The game, from what I can see, is actually really good, gets really good reviews so far, and it claims to let players approach it as like a hide and seek game, an action game, a stealth game, or just about anywhere in between, and offers a slew of various endings. I think if I liked these kind of games, this one would be worth checking out. Super Jumpy Ball, 1 to 8 players. Yes, that's in the title. And it comes to us from Casual Games for $5. It's a simple 2D platform game for, up to 8 players. And this game, it looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint, and while I haven't played it, I'm gonna guess it's a pass for most of you. Hyperdrive Massacre is an $8 game by 34 Big Things, who have developed 4 other games on the Switch that I have never heard of. And that's saying something when you've run a podcast for a year focused on looking at every single new release on the Switch. So I don't know how those slip through the cracks. Now, 34 Big Things description is really some hardcore word salad here, so let's, get on with it.
Hyperdrive Massacre is an 80s-inspired arcade frag fest in Space War sauce, designed around local multiplayer, focused on kinesthetics, tactical, and shooting skills at a frenzied pace.
That's what they say. I look at it and I see some really ugly backgrounds with clip art of ugly cars in what looks like some sort of horizontal shoot 'em up, but with a competitive soccer-like game underneath. I don't know. I'm not feeling Hyperdrive Massacre this week. Kaiju Chaos, the last game to come out on September 6th by Pocket Money Games, launches for $4.59. If you aren't aware, kaiju are the Japanese name for things like Godzilla, King Kong, and those types of massive fictional monsters. This game is an endless runner where you're one of those dudes. And then coming on September 10th, we get Gun Gun Pixies, which is this week's scantily clad anime girl game, coming to us by way of P-Cube, who has been really on a roll recently with some pretty solid Nindies. This one launches for a whopping $50. But seems like kind of a fun premise. As the aforementioned scantily clad anime girls, you are little tiny fairy pixie things in a girl's dorm room where you must save the world by taking out adorable aliens in a super colorful third-person shooter. I really wasn't expecting that when I started reading and looking into the game. I'm like, oh, this is an over-the-shoulder shooter. That's fun. It actually doesn't look really that bad. Oh, wait, nope. There are 3 modes to the game. One of them is called bathing. And since you're this little tiny pixie, of course, you can pan the camera up and look up under anime girls' skirts. What is with these games? Also on the 10th, Blasphemous by Team 17, the publishers of Overcooked, My Time at Portia, Yooka-Laylee, and quite a few other quality Nindies, also launches on September 10th for $24.99, and it is a side-scrolling hack-and-slash game with a gothic art style reminiscent of Castlevania or Dead Cells. And like Dead Cells, this game boasts a non-linear adventure with roguelike mechanics, and I'm just gonna guess RPG elements. I really have nothing to back that up though, except, a year of reading that phrase. And the lone title on September 11th is Throne Quest Deluxe by Valorware, a developer and publisher new to the Nintendo eShop, and it is an open-world, top-down action RPG for $6 with an 8-bit graphic style and 12 different classes to play as, so you can find the combat style that best fits how you like to battle your way through a series of medieval overworlds and dungeons. And then rounding out what is admittedly a little shorter week than usual, on September 12th, we get a few games, starting with The Sinking City, a new title by another new Nindie publisher, Frogware. And while it is also a whopping $50, this looks like a really polished third-person adventure game in a style and a setting that I love. It is this 1920s Lovecraftian era about a sunken city and the ghosts that inhabit it. If you're into narrative adventures with a healthy dose of the investigative work, I think Sinking City looks like a game worth checking out. Just, be ready for some spookies. Sidney Hunter and the Curse of the Mayan comes to us by another new publisher, Collector Vision Games, for $19.99, and is a love letter to just about every kind of great 8-bit NES game. As you explore an Indiana Jones-like Mayan temple, you'll partake in Mega Man-like boss fights, Metroid-style exploration, platforming and traps from the likes of Prince of Persia, and labyrinth spelunking similar to The Legend of Zelda. And this game looks like it could really be something special. Usually when I see a game demanding a higher sticker price like this, I usually think the developers are crazy. But with Sidney Hunter, I think they might actually just be confident in the product they have. Sidney Hunter and the Curse of the Mayan looks like a game to add to your wish list. Battle Supremacy Evolution is the other half of the Battle Supremacy pair from Atypical Games that we talked about earlier on in this episode. The other game is all about tanks in the desert, but this one straight up looks like Star Fox or Warhawk. Very nice production value and visuals with a cool morphing vehicle mechanic that delivers a bunch of different types of air combat, as well as an on-ground tank vehicle that looks exactly like the one from Star Fox 64. I am really, really feeling this game, and a lot more than that tank-only game. I might give this one a shot, and it's only $10. The 10th Line by Sungazer Software, another new Nindie developer, is a $13 title that should be on the wish list of any classic RPG fan. And this game brings 2D exploration and platforming to the mix with 3 unique characters, and that seems very similar to what I've seen in games like the Trine series, but then the battles play out in a pseudo card-based RPG system that looks very traditional and a lot of fun. The characters all have very deep skill progression systems that really made me want to explore them further, and the heartwarming story about a group of misfits trying to find themselves while on the run from a mysterious cult is exactly the kind of game that I would play on Super Nintendo or PlayStation. I will be checking out more reviews for this game, and if it is as good as it seems, expect a report back next week. Continuing the trend for the second week in a row of a ton of first-time Nindie developers and publishers, PlayStack brings us the delightfully weird Super Dodgeball Beats for $12.99. I'm not sure if there's a specific target demographic for a hyper-stylized combat dodgeball game that plays out like a rhythm game, but hey, this is what the Nindies are all about, man, and I'd love love to get some more time with Super Dodgeball Beats. If this is on your wish list, or if somebody else listening to this podcast has been able to spend time with it, I would love to chat about this one. I'm very intrigued, but I don't know if I'm going to drop the dollars on it. So let me know on Twitter @NindieNation. Wrapping up this week's new releases, and the 5th consecutive new release by a brand new Nindie developer, is Ritual, Sorcerer Angel by Hexage. It's releasing for $9.99. This is a very cool take on the action RPG as a screen-clearing arena game where you're dropped into a battlefield as said sorcerer and must use combinations of over 100 different spells and weapons that you get to craft yourself to take out all of the enemies and reclaim that screen. It's got very deep RPG mechanics and a new game plus mode, and there are literally millions of different loadouts that you can take into battle across dozens of unique levels and some randomized ones, so it's got a good mix of both. This is another one that I'm really feeling, and actually I think Ritual Sorcerer Angel is probably going to be my take a chance on this pick of the week, because this game looks unique, polished, and includes a ton of RPG systems with a new game plus mode, so I think it'll keep rolling well after you've completed the initial campaign. Mix all of that in with a $10 game from a new developer, and it sounds like just what the Nindie Doctor ordered. Coming out after that, we'll see a new twin-stick shooter from our friends at Dragius Games, visual novels that range from the serene to the paranoid, and a gory arena combat game from the fine folks at Cubic Games. But that's next week, and as I mentioned for this week, my pick of the week is either Creature in the Well, if you're looking for something weird but already well-reviewed, Finn and the Ancient Mystery, if you're looking for a cheap way to kill some time with a fun little game, and if you're willing to take a chance, Ritual Sorcerer Angel looks like it is worth the $10 risk. But if you're not looking for something new, and you'd rather stretch your digital dollar on a game you know is worth your time, look no further. The eShop currently has 283 games on sale, with 142 of them kicking off on September 5th. Let's take a look at some of the best deals you can get on Nindies this week. Undertale is $9.99, which is 30% off and is one of the highest rated video games of the last generation. If you're in the mood for an Earthbound-like RPG with a deep story and tons of replayability, don't sleep on Undertale. Earthlock is 55% off for $13.49 and is a traditional but fun JRPG with an easy 40 to 50 plus hours of gameplay and a good turn-based combat system that lets you position your character around on the battlefield before picking your attack, and I really liked that. The story and characters are full of JRPG tropes, but I thought Earthlock used them pretty well. Mech Rage by Dragius Games is a short and decent twin-stick shooter, currently for $1.49, down from $10, and is an easy recommendation at that price. Candle, The Power and the Flame is a bizarre adventure game, currently 75% off for $4.99. It has a good Metacritic and is a good pick for fans of this genre. Miles and Kilo is a tough but fair level-based runner that's half off for $3.99. You'll definitely get your $4 worth out of this one if you're in the mood for a bunch of 20-second levels that'll take you a dozen or so tries to beat. I really like this game and I go back to it quite often. Still haven't finished it, but that's part of the fun, is it's tough but fair. Mana Spark, or Mana Spark, depending on what part of the country you're in, is 80% off for $1.99 and a very, very easy recommendation for anyone who likes top-down action RPGs with a healthy dose of RPG systems. Sparkle 3 Genesis and Sparkle 0 are both 90% off for 49 cents, and they are very serene games where you're this little organism floating in the ocean. You're looking for smaller things to eat up so you can grow, but you're also trying to absorb the bigger things that can absorb you. Make no mistake, these are not good games, but they're 49 cents, and they're something that I load up every once in a while when I'm just feeling like vegging out, and it's actually good airplane games. That's when I play them a lot, when I'm waiting to fall asleep as the plane is going up. I don't know if it's good to fall asleep on an airplane is the best recommendation, but I mean, I've probably put like 5 or 6 hours into Sparkle 3, and I also paid 49 cents for it. You know, the sales were really a bit light this week, but Undertale and Monospark are easy recommendations for $10 and $2 respectively. I think, dropping $7.50 to pick up Miles and Kilo, Monospark, and Mech Rage would give you a nice variety of new titles to add to your collection, and Monospark is one that you could end up playing for well over 100 hours. But what are you picking up this week? Let me know on Twitter at Nindie Nation, and let's keep the Nindie chat going, fam. Also, don't forget this podcast posts weekly on YouTube with a video of the games that we cover. And while you're on the Nindie Nation YouTube channel, don't forget to check out Let's Play Nindies, featuring the brand new Rad, some classics such as Assault Android Cactus and Skyforce Reloaded, and some quirky games like Revenge of the Bird King that could only be possible with independent game developers. While you're interneting away at your connected interweb gadget of choice, go check out the Nintendo Village at thenintendovillage.com to see the rest of the network Nindie Nation is a part of. The site includes articles and reviews for all types of games by a group of people who truly love our favorite video game company from Kyoto. They also have a YouTube channel and a ton of podcasts focused on things ranging from the news of the week with Switch Talk or PMyth Gaming, as well as more niche shows like Mouse Bites and Nintendo Nostalgia. So give them a listen and chat with them on Twitter at Village Nintendo. And for next week, I hope to have a Let's Play Nindies finished for Fen, because I really want to show this game to more people. It's not great, like I said, but it's fun and it has some good ideas, and I gotta show people the main character. He's got this really unsettling face. Anyways, just look for the video and you'll see what I mean. And as I keep teasing, I'm getting closer and closer to launching my first video in a brand new series, but it's taken me a long time, so I appreciate your patience. And once the video is ready, you'll all be the first to know. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your feedback on all platforms, and thank you for spreading the love of Nindies in any way possible. I appreciate the time all of you spend with the Nindie Nation every week, and look forward to discussing all things independently developed for the Nintendo Switch in next week's episode. Until then, keep those Joy-Cons synced.